Hello, I'm Eileen Godwin. Today I would like to share my take on the masterboard technique with you. This is the card that we will be doing today. It started off as an A4 sheet of cardstock, and then when it was finally finished I sliced it into 3 to make it into a triptych card. Centura Pearl cardstock. This is the pearlized side, which I don't use for my distress work. It's the white reverse side that I really love because it takes distressing really well, and that's what I use for all the masterboards that we were doing at my workshops in December. You will also need some heavy white gesso. I tried the cheaper brand and it does work, but this is good quality and it seemed to be better. Remove the lid. Take a spatula and apply a small amount of the gesso onto your craft mat. And I'm spreading it out as if I'm icing a cake so that it won't be too lumpy or get too splodgy. And then I'm taking a stencil, and this is the basis for the technique. As you've already guessed it, it's a gesso resist technique. Choose the flower. I actually like this one. And I'm using a foam from a blending tool, the round blending tool foam. I did try cut and dry, but unfortunately it wasn't too good, and it did leak under the gesso, leaked underneath the stencil. But I find that the blending foam is far more pliable. So don't worry too much if the stencil overlaps. This gesso dries very, very quickly. And I'm just dabbing rather than swooshing. The swooshing will also make the gesso go underneath the stencil. I'll try and speed up a bit now. You're just filling in the card stock in any design that you like, just to fill the spaces and get the flowers in some sort of order. But it doesn't matter if you overlap them. There's a nice little piece there, and there's another gap. And one more there. Just a little more gesso. Again, spread out. Each flower here has got one layer of gesso. You can use 2 if you like. It gives it a bit more of a dramatic effect. That's all with that stencil, but then I applied more gesso with another stencil, slightly smaller, of a different design totally. This is a clarity stencil, I believe. The last one was from Paper Artsy, and this is a clarity honeycomb stencil. And I'm just filling in any more gaps that I can see on the cardstock. Again, you don't have to be too careful. The idea of the technique is to build up layer upon layer, so what mistakes you make now you can rectify later as the layers build up on each other. That's it for the gesso. Now I'm going to wait for it to dry and clean the board at the same time. Okay, the gesso is now dry, so it's dry enough for us to apply the inks and make the flowers that you've laid down already pop. I'm using wild honey, picked raspberry, peacock feathers, 3 of my favourite colours. Starting off with the blue, load up your blending tool, use a piece of copy paper to protect your work from your oily fingerprints, and then from off the page apply the distress ink, you can see I'm really loading this, and it is a new ink pad. You can see how the flowers pop. Really good resist. And I'm really grinding this ink into the cardstock. Centura Pearl takes distress ink very well, but even more so because you use on occasion water with distress ink for various techniques. The Centura Pearl seems to hold the water and deals with it very effectively, which is why I like using it. It's quite robust. Some Wild Honey, again another juicy ink pad, and then blend it into the pink, and of course you get the orange. It's gorgeous, really, or more vivid orange. Back to the pink raspberry again, picked raspberry rather. A little bit of purple there. Need some more blue, and then I think that we're done. Just need some more blue in this area. And then to give it the final blend, I use the lightest colour of distress ink and then go over to blend it in thoroughly. You will find that as the cardstock soaks the inks up, the inks will, in fact, the colours will get far more vivid. The next part is to use another stencil. Again, you've obviously realised now that it's just layer upon layer. And I'm using another stencil, but I'm using distress ink for this and not any more gesso or any more resist. And this is just going to be a shadow, so I'm not looking for it to be too deep in colour, but obviously you can do as you want. And this is a Tim Holtz stencil called Shattered something or other. Shatter. It reminds me of a spider's web, and I really love it. And to apply, I'm using aged mahogany. Hoping you can see this okay. You can stencil wherever you feel that you need a little bit of interest. That was a bit of a boring corner, so now it isn't, if you get my meaning. So ink applied, stenciling all done. I'm going to wait for the ink to dry, and then I'm just going to run a little bit of a baby wipe over the petals of the flowers to see if I can remove some of the ink first, and then we'll go on to part 2. Yes, can you see them pop? Just remove a little bit of the ink. And now I'll wait for that to dry.